"What's the cheapest thing you've got?" the man asked, pulling his hood tighter around his weather-beaten face as the cold wind from the door clung to him like an unwelcome memory. His voice was low, almost cautious, a tone of someone who'd long stopped expecting kindness. The cashier didn't even glance up. "Soup, $5. He nodded. "Soup, then." He slid a crumpled bill across the counter. His hands were calloused, his eyes dimmed by exhaustion. The hoodie hung loose over his shoulders, and his jeans bore the kind of wear that didn't come from fashion, but from survival. His name was Yaric Jensen, and while he looked like a wanderer down on his luck, he was, in truth, the owner of the very restaurant he stood in. For the past 3 nights, sleep had evaded him. Instead, he pored over security footage and incident reports from Store 9, one of the 14 fast casual diners he'd painstakingly built over 8 years. His vision had always been simple: affordable comfort food, served with dignity, in spaces that made people feel like they belonged. But lately, something had gone deeply wrong. Store 9's customer reviews had nosedived. There were complaints of being ignored, mistreated, turned away. One review, in particular, gnawed at him like a splinter in the soul. "Walked in, got told I didn't belong, didn't even get to order. Just left." That line haunted him, not because of its bluntness, but because it felt like betrayal. He'd never met the crew at Store 9. It was out of state, a small town outlet that had burned through 2 managers in 12 months. District supervisors had visited and filed glowing reports. But Yaric had built this brand from the bottom up. He trusted his gut. And right now, his gut told him something was wrong. So, he boarded a red-eye flight, ditched the blazer, and became invisible. The restaurant was half full when he entered. A young man in a faded black uniform listlessly mopped near the soda fountain. 2 elderly women chatted quietly by the window. A teenage girl leaned against a counter near the kitchen, absorbed in her phone. No greetings, no smiles, just silence, thick and sterile. He ordered the soup and stepped aside. Then it happened. "You lost or something?" The voice was sharp, edged with judgment. He turned and saw a waitress, short blonde hair, thick eyeliner, arms crossed like shields. Her name tag said Lacey. "I just ordered soup," he replied, even. She narrowed her eyes. "No offense, but you don't look like someone who eats here. You don't belong." The words landed like a slap across the face. He'd read them before, in that review. But hearing them aloud, in his restaurant, stirred something deeper than anger. It was grief. Grief for a vision crumbling quietly behind layers of missed details and failed oversight. "I'm just here to eat," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "Yeah?" she sneered. "Then eat fast. We don't need weirdos hanging around." No retort, no confrontation. He nodded once and stepped away. The soup came out in a paper bowl. It looked like it had been sitting too long. Cold, congealed. No spoon, no napkin. No care. He found a seat in the back corner, unnoticed, or perhaps intentionally unseen. For the next 20 minutes, he watched. 2 customers walked in, paused at the counter, waiting. Lacey didn't move. After a minute, they left. The teenager by the kitchen, her name tag read Amber, kept glancing over, visibly uneasy, but stayed silent. Then a man in a stained apron approached his table, dropped a wet rag nearby. "You need something?" he asked, uninterested. "Number just eating." "You look like trouble," the man muttered, walking off. Underneath the table, Yaric's fists clenched. His mind raced. How many customers had felt this? How many had walked away feeling small, devalued, dehumanized? Finally, Amber approached. "Hey," she said quietly, her voice cracking like she hadn't spoken freely in days. I'm sorry about earlier. That wasn't right. You shouldn't have been treated like that. He looked up. You knew here? She nodded. 2 weeks. It's not always this bad, but yeah, they're rough. I try to stay out of the way. Why stay? A pause, a swallow. Because I need this job. My mum's sick. I help with bills. If I get fired... Her voice trailed off. She couldn't have been more than 19. Her hands trembled as she fidgeted with a napkin, as if looking for a shred of comfort in its fibers. Yaric stood slowly. Something inside him shifted. Disappointment. Yes. But also a flicker of hope. Thank you, he said. That meant more than you know. Amber blinked. You sure you're okay? He nodded. I will be. He tossed the soup, untouched, into the trash. Lacey, watching from behind the counter, rolled her eyes. Figures, she muttered. Yaric didn't say another word. He walked out into the cool evening air, his footsteps quiet, but his purpose roaring. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Back in the rental car, Yaric Jensen sat in silence, gripping the steering wheel as if it were the only thing keeping him grounded. His stomach churned, not from the cold soup he had abandoned, but from the bitter taste of betrayal rising in his chest. This wasn't supposed to happen, not in his restaurant, not in a place meant to feel like home to everyone who walked through the doors. He had envisioned a business that welcomed the tired, the unseen, the forgotten, a sanctuary of warmth and kindness. Yet here he was, witnessing the slow decay of that dream. The people running Store 9 had twisted it into something cold and careless. And now, something had to give. They wouldn't see it coming. The next morning, he stood behind the back loading dock of Store 9 as the early spring chill nipped at his neck. His uniform was borrowed, an old, faded brown polo with a stitched name tag that read Kyle, paired with stiff black slacks and a stained apron. The district manager had set it up. For 2 days, he would shadow as a kitchen trainee. No one here would know who he truly was. Inside, the building buzzed with fluorescent light, flickering like the pulse of something that used to be alive, but had since grown tired. One by one, the staff drifted in, unaware of what today would set in motion. Amber came in first, her earbuds in, head down like a soldier clocking into battle. She walked past Yaric without a glance. She didn't recognize him in uniform. Lewis arrived next, scruffy, bleary-eyed, reeking faintly of stale sweat and cheap deodorant, like he'd slept in his car. And then, fashionably late and unapologetically smug, came Lacey. She strutted in with an oversized iced coffee in one hand and entitlement in the other, ignoring the clock-in terminal like it owed her something. "Look what we got," she said with a smirk, nodding toward Yaric. "Another one. Bet he doesn't make it past lunch." Her voice was sugar-coated venom. Yaric didn't respond. He wasn't here to defend himself. He was here to watch. What he saw would determine whether Store 9 lived or died. The morning prep was chaotic. Lewis barked orders without context, tossing tools like they were disposable. Cut the carrots like this, not like a toddler's art project. The knife he handed over was dull, and the cutting board warped beyond recognition. The kitchen felt sticky, as if the grime had become a permanent part of its personality. Amber moved quietly, efficiently, counting inventory, chopping onions with mechanical precision. She avoided eye contact with Lewis and Lacey, speaking only when necessary. It was the behavior of someone who had learned the safest place was silence. At one point, Lewis stepped outside for a smoke, and Lacey wandered into the kitchen. She leaned against a prep counter, phone in hand, scrolling through social media like it was part of her job description. Amber glanced at her, then back at the line of prep tickets. "Lacey, we're behind." she said, not even looking up. Then work faster, Lacey muttered, never lifting her eyes. Yaric noticed Amber's jaw tighten, but she didn't respond. She just moved faster. By late morning, the doors opened, and customers trickled in, mostly seniors and students from the nearby college. Yaric was sent to the dish pit. It was back-breaking work, but it gave him the perfect vantage point. From there, he could see the pulse of the place, the way the staff moved, the way they treated guests. What he saw chilled him. Lacey snapped at a woman who asked for substitutions, rolled her eyes when another customer asked for a clean spoon, and when a man in a wheelchair politely requested help moving a chair to fit into a booth, Lacey scoffed. "We're not a furniture store," she said, walking off without another word. That was the breaking point. Yaric set his towel aside and walked out from behind the dish station. "Excuse me," he said to the man. "Let me help you with that." He moved the chair, cleaned the table with care, and handed the man a menu. "Appreciate it," the customer said. "That other girl. I don't know what her problem is." "I'm sorry about that," Yaric said softly. "It won't happen again." From the register, Amber watched, her eyes locked with his. She didn't speak, but her expression changed, like a whisper of recognition, like hope. Then the lunch rush hit like a tidal wave. Orders flooded the screens. The kitchen turned frantic. Lewis was sweating through his shirt, cursing under his breath as tickets flashed red. Lacey disappeared behind the building for nearly 20 minutes. When she returned, she smelled of cigarettes and something sharper, something dangerous. "Where were you?" Amber asked, clearly overwhelmed. "Break," Lacey said flatly. "You didn't clock out. You left me up front alone." "Not my fault. You can't multitask," Lacey shot back. Amber turned away, blinking quickly, refusing to let tears show. Yaric started toward the kitchen, but Lewis stopped him with a grip to the arm. "You see this?" he hissed, pointing at the screen. "This is why new guys don't last. We're drowning and nobody gives a damn." "Why don't you talk to the manager?" Yaric asked calmly. Lewis let out a bitter laugh. "We don't have one. Lacey runs the shifts. Greg quit 2 months ago, and corporate never replaced him. She does whatever she wants." Yaric didn't respond. He just nodded and went back to work, his mind burning. At 2:30, a woman in a bright red blouse stepped up to the counter, looking around with concern. "I placed an online order," she said politely. "It was supposed to be ready at 2:15. Lacey, once again leaning against the counter with her phone, didn't move. "Name?" she asked, eyes still on the screen. "Danielle." Lacey tapped at the keyboard half-heartedly. "Yeah, it's not done." "What do you mean?" "I got a confirmation. Computer must have glitched, not my problem." That was it. Yaric emerged from the back, drying his hands on a towel. "I'll take care of it," he said to Danielle, then turned to Lacey. "Where's the order sheet?" Lacey narrowed her eyes. "Who do you think you are?" "Someone who understands we don't treat people like trash." Her stance stiffened. "You better watch it. I've been here over a year. I run this place." "Then you should know better." Lewis peeked out from the kitchen. Amber froze at the register, her eyes wide. Danielle looked ready to walk out. "I'll just go," she whispered, awkward and hurt. "No, you won't," Yaric said, gently but firmly. "You'll get what you paid for. Just give me 5 minutes." Danielle nodded slowly, surprised. The storm had begun, and Store 9 would never be the same again. Yaric grabbed the order ticket with quiet resolve, scanning the items quickly. Sandwich, side salad, drink. He moved with purpose, not haste, assembling it himself with the kind of care that was once the foundation of his company's values. Amber as if sensing the shift in the room, joined him without saying a word. Together they packed the meal neatly, sealed the bag, and handed it across the counter to Danielle. She blinked in surprise, her irritation softening into disbelief. "Thanks, really. That was unexpected." Yaric nodded once, a small, deliberate gesture. He waited until the door closed behind her before turning to face Lacey. "You're done." Lacey scoffed. "What?" "You're done. Clock out. You can't fire me. You're a trainee." Yaric took a step forward. His voice was calm, but every syllable carried the weight of a storm on the horizon. "My name is Yaric Jensen. I'm the founder and owner of this company." The room dropped into silence. It was the kind of silence that lands, heavy and still, like the air before a lightning strike. Lacey's mouth fell open, her confidence draining from her face like color from a photograph. Lewis froze mid-motion, the spatula clattering to the counter. Amber's eyes went wide, caught between fear and awe. Yaric didn't raise his voice. "Yesterday you told me I didn't belong. Today you let a disabled man struggle for a place to sit. You walked off the floor during a rush and treated a paying customer like she was beneath you. You've disrespected your team, our guests, and everything this brand was built on." He paused, letting the truth hang between them. "You're dismissed, immediately." Lacey's confidence cracked. She stood motionless for a beat too long, then spun toward the back, muttering under her breath, grabbing her purse with jerky movements before disappearing through the exit. The slam of the door echoed through the space. No one spoke for several seconds. Then Amber stepped forward. "Sir, I didn't know." "You don't have to explain," Yaric said gently. "But I'd like to speak with you after close. You too, Lewis." He scanned their tired faces, the tension etched into their brows, and added, "We've got a lot to fix. And I'm not leaving until we do." For the first time that day, Amber smiled. Not big, not dramatic, but it was there. Something hopeful, something real, like a beam of light breaking through overcast skies. Later that night, with the doors locked and the final customer long gone, the dining room sank into stillness. The walk-in cooler hummed in the background, dishes clinked faintly from the back, and everything else was quiet. Yaric stood near the register, arms crossed, watching as Amber and Lewis finished wiping down prep tables. The energy had shifted, tense, still but also lighter, like a room learning how to breathe again. "She's really not coming back, is she?" Lewis asked, breaking the silence. "No," Yaric replied. "She's not?" Amber leaned against the counter, her voice tinged with disbelief. "We've all wanted that to happen for months. No one thought it actually would." Yaric's voice was soft but certain. "I'm sorry it took this long. I should have been here sooner." Lewis gave a short nod. "You said you wanted to talk?" Yaric motioned toward one of the empty tables. They pulled out chairs, and for the first time all day, sat down together, as equals. The harsh overhead lights cast soft shadows now, giving the restaurant the quiet intimacy of a space meant for truth. A place for rebuilding. "I read the reports," Yaric began, folding his hands, "but I didn't understand the damage until I stood in it." Amber leaned forward, elbows on the table, exhaustion and frustration mixing in her voice. "It's not just Lacey. It's the whole setup. We've been short-staffed for weeks. Nobody wants to transfer in because of the high turnover. Orders get backed up. We can't keep up." Lewis added, "When people walk in, they size the place up in 10 seconds. If what they see is Lacey on her phone and me back there drowning, they walk back out." Yaric absorbed it all. These weren't excuses. They were cries for help. "How many shifts are you working?" 6 a week, Lewis said. 12-hour days. I clock out on time, but I don't leave. just stopped getting paid. Amber turned to him, surprised. You're still here when I open. I didn't know. I didn't want to drag you into it. Lewis shrugged it. That ends now, Yaric said firmly. By Monday, I'm approving 2 new hires, one for the front, one for kitchen. You'll both get support, but that's just the start. He turned to Amber. You've been holding this place together. Register, inventory, prep, clean up. That's not entry-level work. Amber blinked. What are you saying? You've been doing the job of a floor lead. Starting tomorrow, you'll have the title and the pay. Lewis looked over, surprised. She deserves it. Place would have collapsed without her. Amber's eyes lowered to the table. Thank you. I didn't expect that. You earned it, Yaric said, not with grand gestures, but with consistency, grace and grit. But that kind of weight burns people out. So, I'm giving you 2 extra paid days off this month. Use them. Don't wait until you're on empty. Amber nodded slowly. I will. I promise. Lewis shifted in his seat. What about the kitchen? It's not just people. The slicer's dull. The sanitizing station barely works. And I've been stuffing cardboard into the walk-in door to keep the cold in. Make a list, Yaric said. Tonight, everything the kitchen needs. Maintenance crew's coming this weekend, and the regional equipment manager will call you directly. Going forward, if it breaks, you don't wait. You call Lewis. Exhaled slowly, shoulders relaxing. All right, that'll help. A lot. A pause fell, thoughtful and full. Then Amber broke it, her voice softer now. You're not like the others. Yaric raised a brow. What others? Most owners, she said. They don't show up, or if they do, it's for some staged walk-through. Smiles, photos, nothing real. I didn't want to be that kind of owner, Yaric said. But somewhere along the way, I stopped looking. I let myself believe the reports instead of seeing the people. He looked between them, steady. That's on me. Lewis leaned back. So what changes now? Tomorrow, Yaric said. We're closing from 2 to 5. I'm calling in every employee we've got left. We're going to sit in this room, talk about what's broken, and how we're going to fix it. Together. Everyone's voice matters. Everyone's job matters. Amber smiled again. Bigger this time. They're going to be shocked. Good, Yaric said, standing. They should be. This place is going to run differently. No more silence. No more fear. If someone's slacking, they'll be accountable. If someone's giving more than their share, they'll be recognized. Lewis stood with him. Then I'll be here early. Just say the word. Yaric nodded, his voice soft but fierce with promise. Let's build the kind of place we all believed it could be. I'll be here too, Amber added, her voice carrying a quiet conviction. It wasn't just a statement, it was a promise. Yaric stood beside them, no longer a stranger in disguise, but a leader returning to the roots of what he'd built. One more thing, he said, voice firm but kind. If either of you ever see someone treated the way I was when I first walked through those doors, for any reason, I want to hear about it. Immediately. I don't care who it is, a customer, supplier, or crew member. We do not tell people they don't belong. Not ever. Both nodded, this time solemn. The weight of his words and the past that made them necessary settled heavily in the air. It wasn't a warning. It was a new standard. As they left for the night, Yaric stayed behind. Alone in the dim restaurant, he moved slowly through the dining area, flipping chairs onto tables, the familiar clatter echoing like memories resurfacing. The scent of fryer oil lingered faintly beneath the tang of bleach. He paused at the same table where he'd once sat with a paper bowl of congealed soup, the table that had revealed the cracks in his empire. The corner still faced the same direction. But now, everything felt shifted. Not perfect, but honest. By 2 o'clock the next afternoon, Store 9 felt transformed. The lights had been softened to a warm, amber hue. Less interrogation lamp, more hearth. Every surface gleamed. Chairs were in place, menus refreshed, and a whiteboard stood near the counter with 5 bold words scrawled in thick black marker. Today, we rebuild together. 7 employees gathered near the front, some still in aprons, others freshly changed out of their shifts. Many had never spoken to each other outside the blur of overlapping tasks. Now they stood shoulder to shoulder, brows furrowed, arms crossed, unsure of what was about to unfold, but quietly hoping it mattered. Yaric stood by the register, sleeves rolled, clipboard in hand, not to wield authority, but to take notes. He didn't shout, he didn't pace. "You've all worked here longer than I have," he began, meeting each gaze in turn. "But yesterday, I saw things I never thought I'd find in one of my restaurants." He let that hang, a truth exposed without shame, just clarity. "I saw a team struggling to keep this place afloat, without proper leadership, without support, and far too often, without respect. Many of you were doing 3 jobs at once. Some of you were treated like you didn't matter. That ends now." A woman stepped forward, a name tag reading Teresa, her face lined with years of quiet endurance. "Are we getting a new manager, or are you staying here?" "I'm not staying," Yaric replied, "but I'm not disappearing either." He took a breath. "Starting next week, this store will have a full-time general manager. Her name is Molina Torres. I hired her 6 years ago. She comes from Store 4. She understands what this company really stands for, and she doesn't make room for excuses." Murmurs spread through the group, curiosity, cautious optimism. "Until she arrives," he continued, "Amber will serve as interim floor lead. She's earned my trust and yours. Nothing happens without her voice at the table." Amber didn't step forward. She didn't smile or wave. She just stood tall and steady, eyes forward, quietly owning the respect she'd fought for. Lewis raised a hand. "What about the kitchen? We're working with a slicer that barely cuts, and a fryer that dies if you breathe on it." "I've already submitted the requisition," Yaric replied. "A technician will be here Saturday morning. Lewis, I need you to walk them through everything. You'll be paid for your time." Before Yaric could continue, a younger man spoke up. He looked barely out of high school, flour dusting his apron. "I'm Jonas. I do prep in the mornings. I don't mean to step out of line, but how are we supposed to keep up while all this change is happening? We're barely surviving." "You're not out of line," Yaric said, voice steady. "You're right. Which is why, starting today, I've approved emergency overtime for the next 10 days. Anyone willing to stay an hour late will be paid time and a half. 2 new hires are already in process." He smiled faintly. "Until then, I'll be working the line with you. No titles. Just hands." Jonas blinked. "You're going to cook?" "I already did dishes. Might as well keep going." A few chuckles rippled through the room. The tension loosened slightly. A red-haired woman in the back, skeptical and guarded, crossed her arms. "What happens when you fly back to headquarters? No offense, but we've heard promises before." "I get it," Yaric said. "Words are cheap. So here's the deal. Every 2 weeks, this store sends a full operational report directly to my inbox. No filters, no edits. And once a month, I'll work a shift at one of our locations. No heads up, no press. Just me, showing up." That got their attention. Teresa raised an eyebrow. "So, what's the catch?" "No catch," Yaric said. "But there is one rule. If you see anyone, customer, co-worker, anyone, being disrespected because of how they look, what they wear, who they are, you speak up. Immediately. Zero tolerance. Jonas looked down, then up. That's happened here, a lot. I know, Yaric said. And that's on me. I built a system that let it fester. But from this day forward, silence is complicity. If someone retaliates against you for doing the right thing, they're gone. No questions. The room fell silent again, but this time it wasn't fear. It was focus. Then Teresa asked quietly, "What do you need from us?" Yaric looked around, letting the moment settle. "I need honesty. If you're overwhelmed, say so. If something's broken, report it. Don't protect people who don't care. Don't punish those who do. We fix this place together. Or not at all." He stepped back, placing the clipboard on the counter. This store has one more chance to become what it was always meant to be. A place where everyone belongs. And it starts right now. Amber stepped forward, not with a speech, but with a simple phrase that landed like the spark before a flame. "Let's get to work." That afternoon, the doors stayed closed to customers. But inside, something new was taking root. The team didn't scatter. They cleaned, they organized. Lewis helped Jonas reconfigure dry storage. Teresa and Amber rewrote the schedule by hand, this time with fairness. Yaric hauled broken parts to the dumpster, then swept the alley himself. No one asked him to. By dusk, the space was quiet again. Bleach replaced the smell of old oil. The windows gleamed for the first time in months. Chairs were stacked neatly. Even the silence felt clean. Outside, Yaric leaned against the trash bin, sleeves rolled, watching the sun sink low behind the buildings. Amber stepped out beside him, jacket slung over one shoulder. "You staying nearby?" "Yeah. Motel down the block." She hesitated. "I didn't think any of this would actually happen." "Not really." "Neither did I," he admitted. "But yesterday, you reminded me why I started all this." Amber didn't ask what he meant. She just followed his gaze towards the building, now dark, but finally full of promise. "It's going to take time," she said quietly. "Good things do." Shadga nodded once. "See you in the morning." As she walked off, Yaric turned back towards Store 9. No lights, no customers, just a quiet structure waiting for its second chance. And this time, it would earn it.